I also believed and believe today as an economist, there's enough to go around. Because another theory of economics, the Malthusian theory, is there's not enough for everybody. So the fighting is inevitable. There will always be those who lose in the end because there's not enough for everybody in the world. We could discuss that, but I reject that on economic grounds. In other words, not out of moral theory, but out of practical theory. We could have everybody living in a good life as long as they're using solar power, not if they're using fossil fuel. So as long as we make the right technological choices, then there's enough to go around in the world for everybody in the world. That's what I argued in the early 1990s. The United States, however, maintained and even intensified its imperial idea. Instead of viewing the end of the Cold War as the opportunity for a new world order that was balanced, fair, peaceful, the United States viewed the end of the Cold War as the opportunity for hegemony. And that's very explicit. This became the ideology of the so-called neoconservatives who dominated American politics from 1991 basically until today. And the neoconservative idea is the world can only be safe if the U.S. leads the world, because the U.S. is a power for good, and so the U.S. should set the rules, it should be the world policeman, it should determine what happens in each part of the world, and then things will be fine. This is a very arrogant position, of course. It's a very delusional idea. But it is really the idea that was espoused by government after government starting in 1991. And I witnessed it close up because my argument as an economist was that we should help Russia to get back on its feet. We should help Africa to achieve development. We should make sure that poverty is overcome everywhere. And none of those ideas was accepted in the American political leadership, even by my own colleagues who were in positions of power temporarily. They viewed such ideas as naive and as contrary to American interests. America's interest is to be number one, not to be cooperative in an open world in which there is shared prosperity. So the ideology was, in my view, made even worse by the end of the Cold War. It turned out, by the way, and it's relevant for China also, during the Cold War, all of the U.S. rhetoric was, we fight the Soviet Union because of world communism. That word, as you know, in the American scene is viewed as something completely shocking. When Russia became independent and declared we are in a market economy, post-communist, this is another age, it made no difference to American politics. This is quite interesting. In practice, Russia was still an enemy, even afterwards, because it wasn't really communism or ideology. It was simply big powers. And in this, John Mearsheimer is right about the American mentality, which is that the United States sees Russia as a threat, not because of any specific ideology, but because it is big. And the United States sees China as a threat, not because of anything that China does or is other than being big and successful. And therefore, China's only offense is that it threatens American dominance. And that, I think, is a succinct description of the viewpoint of the American leadership. Now, to come back to my view of economics, this is a terrible mistake, not only on a moral level, but on a practical level. The United States has 4% of the world population, 335 million people. How could 4% of the world dominate the world? It's not possible, except if all the rest of the world were to remain poor, unsuccessful, backward, and so forth. But there's not only no moral reason for that, there's no practical reason why that should be the case. So I long believed that poorer countries can grow faster and catch up. And China, of course, is the greatest success story in history of that. But China follows a basic pattern that Japan followed previously, that Hong Kong, Singapore followed previously, because catching up is possible if the leadership is good, if the planning is good, if the strategy is good. There's all this headroom for rapid economic growth possible, and China proved the case once again at a scale unprecedented in history. So the U.S. viewpoint about dominance makes no sense, not only not morally, and not practically in terms of security, because the world's not safe if the U.S. is rich and Russia is unstable with nuclear weapons. Why does that make the U.S. secure? That makes the U.S. more dangerous. But it's also wrong economically, because Russia will catch up. China will catch up. Africa will catch up. And the United States will find out that being 4% of the world population is just 4%. It's not enough to rule the world. The U.S. will have to learn to be cooperative, and will have to learn that statecraft is more than overthrowing governments. But, and here I will come to the point about current politics, the U.S. still does not understand this till today. And the wars that we see and the crises that we see are still crises of the old imperial mentality.
偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹润。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧。